Everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I want to give a little bit of a timeline and a background on how I came to where I am politically, like today. I don't really talk, I do talk about it a little bit. I haven't talked about it much as far as what happened in like the last 10, 12 years, 13, 14, 15 years. And that's probably the most relevant thing to talk about is what happened to me in that time frame. Just looking at it. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So this is kind of what happened to me. I grew up semi-mainstream Democrat, blah blah blah. Voted for Clinton. Wow, I'm old. The second time around. I'm old as sin itself. I voted for Ralph Nader and I voted for Kerry. And voted for Kerry because of the whole thing with George W. Bush, and just like, it's kind of like why people vote for Biden now. It's like the lesser of two evils thing, but I just got so sick of it. I got so sick of hearing about the lesser of two evils over my lifetime. Even when I was a little kid, it's like, oh, well, he's not that great, but let's vote for him. So I got just burnt out on lesser than two evils. So around that period of time after 9/11, I was suspecting some weird stuff was going on with that. So I looked into it and I got into the truther movement, which people criticize, but there is a legitimate side of that. You know, the missing pages from the report, blah blah blah. You know, I don't need to go into that right now. I could in the future. So that gave me a massive distrust of the government, massive distrust of our establishment, along with reading Noam Chomsky books that my friend let me read, and then I bought some and I continued to get to, that was late 90s. I got into all that stuff, and then 9/11 happened and all that stuff. So a long time I was kind of a Green Party person, I guess you could say, but occasionally I'd vote for Democrats because they were lesser than two evils, or, you know, locally they weren't as bad at that point in time, at least. So, you know, like you had Feingold here. He was a pretty decent person, at least at the time. You know, people like that. But so this is what happened. Around mid to late 2000s, I started to, you know, get more and more interested in the manosphere stuff and like the pickup artist seduction community stuff. I'm just being completely upfront here. Mystery, Ross, Neil Strauss, Tyler Durden, all that stuff. I got really interested in it, and I explored some of that stuff for a while. Then I was kind of intermittently into it. I won't go into that in this video, just for various reasons. But I will in the future, though. I'm just saying. So I got into that stuff, and I started reading about like a lot of evolutionary biology and psychology and stuff, and these ideas. And maybe about 2012, there started to be a huge backlash against some of that stuff from the left about, you know, what men, women, blah blah blah, feminism and all this stuff, and like pickup artists and all this stuff. And then what happened was, alongside, and there was a lot of extreme people. Like, we hunted the mammoth. This guy, it was a blogger that was really annoying. There's Matt Binder, who was on Majority Report, pretty cringe guy even now, especially about stuff now. I liked Michael Brooks, though, just as a note. I liked him to some extent, but rest in peace. Talk about left-wingers. So there was a pivot point at that point where the Gamergate thing happened. And since I was on YouTube at that point, I was really interested in like the whole there was a Lillian Kesner, I think her name was. I'll get to her in a minute, but what is her name? Lily? I forgot her name. There were people that were more moderate in the Gamergate thing. The Gamergate thing was a culture war milestone. And I started to, I started to watch these videos because some of the people were later progressive leftists, like Amazing Atheists and people like that. Some of the people became more far right, whatever you want to call it, maybe right wing conservatives like Sargon of Akkad, some of these YouTube people, but they were involved in this debate. And I probably watched hundreds of hours of videos. I'm on YouTube way too much. I'm trying to cut down. It's an addiction. Of pro Gamergate stuff, and there were some videos that were really prominently seemed to have a lot of facts right, and then the media would talk about these people that were on YouTube and elsewhere, and like paint them as like extremists and nuts and all this stuff and evil. And I started, and that was like the peak, like years, beginning of the peak years of the blog style journalism, kind of Vice, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, all Vox, all these things, this kind of sensationalist yellow journalism, as they used to call it, where it was from the left. And I started to see this stuff, and including that one that I mentioned about calling the Iron Cross a Nazi symbol in this video, in this one article and stuff. I started to see all this stuff. I'm like, there's a serious problem here. There's a serious disconnect from reality. Not that I supported everything that Gamergate was about, or even would want to put that on, like I'm a Gamergater or something. I'm not enough of a gamer to like care about Gamergate. There's some games I play, and occasionally, I don't play enough video games. I'm just being honest. Like, I want to play more video games, actually. I do. Sounds crazy. I wish I could, but I have all this music to practice and record, and then other stuff I'm trying to get into as well. So, I'm not a gamer, ostensibly, from the traditional definition of gamer. But I saw all these disingenuous things being perpetuated by the anti-Gamergate left-wing people. And then this Kesner, I forgot that redhead one that was kind of interviewing people from both sides, Lillian Kesner, I think that's her name. And I started to see like the disconnect from reality, because she would interview people from both sides of the argument. So that, along with like the criticism of the manosphere at the time that was coming from the left, I saw it as really disingenuous and really not understanding a lot of the points that were being made. So much to the point where I was like, ugh. I used to start using the word social justice warrior. And that was why I did some videos on that from back then. It's like, these people were nuts. Like, there were people starting to say like biological sex was socially constructed, but it was kind of more of a joke meme at that point. Now it's like kind of acknowledged that some people believe that. So it got so nuts that I was just like, oh my God, I'm still on the left, I'll vote for left-wing candidates, but these people are nuts. These people are insane. So like my roommate at the time, we get into some arguments about that, but he thought that was fringe. Oh, it's fringe, these ideas, Yeah, it's not really mainstream, it's just fringe. But the fringe ideas became more mainstream as time went on, some of the fringe ideas. So that was where I started really to turn around to the right wing, whatever you want to call it. And then when Trump got elected, I saw just like people go crazy. And it wasn't, I had a friend that I was at his house, I'll say, and will remain anonymous, that I was staying over there, or I lived there. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I lived there at the time, my friend in his house. And he's like, I'm going, no! And it was like, the reaction was so like extreme that I'm like, is there a little bit of irrationality? We lived through Bush, Could it be that much worse than Bush? I don't think so. I don't think it could. Maybe. I don't know. There's safeguards in reality with this guy. He's not going to be the Orange Hitler. I don't believe that. I never believed that. I thought he was a con man. I thought he was a con artist. That's the right frame to approach it from, in my opinion. It always was. The way that they framed it was the wrong strategy to go against the man, in my opinion. So things like Trump University, stuff like that, it's this con artist crap. It's not Nazi. Of course, he courted some of those people. I'm not going to deny that. But some of the kind of the alt-right kind of people. But so did Nixon. So did Bush at some level. So did Reagan. They all have these weird evangelical, like, far-right people in they would court. And there's, on the other side, there's far-left people. The whole Jeremiah Wright thing, and, the Bill Ayers and all that stuff. There's people on both sides of the aisle that will kind of like flirt with some of these things because that's their side, even if they're way further than who they are. So I knew that. There were a couple points, like I've mentioned, the North Korea thing, which I think there were back channel communications going on at the time. I believe that truly, especially watching, it sounds ridiculous, but watching more Tom Clancy movies, I know back channel shit was going on with North Korea at the time, probably. And, there wasn't going to be nuclear war per se with them. And also the assassination, that was the worst thing Trump did, was the assassination of that Iranian representative, or not representative, an Iranian general or whatever. It was really stupid. So the two worst, other than Syria, worst foreign policy blunders that he did. So I didn't think Trump was as bad. I didn't think he was good, but I didn't think he was bad. But my roommate went up to his, it wasn't up in his room. Wait. I lived upstairs. Remember the attic? He went to his room and I heard pounding. He told me he just pounded his pillow for hours and cried into his pillow and screamed in his pillow. I heard him scream about Trump being elected. And that was when I knew there was some irrationality from the left coming about. It was like completely off the rails, and I didn't get it. I still don't. I get going against Trump. But I go against Trump just because I'm against policy and stuff, just like I always was with Bush and all the other people. I laughed at Bush. I thought Bush was like unintentionally funny. I think Trump is a little more funny for real, but also unintentionally funny. So I just thought it was the scale of people's reaction was off the charts. Like, I was just like, no, there's no way we can talk about this thing without. And then I kind of shifted to, at that point I was shifting to like the Bernie, I was very into the Bernie thing at that point. I wasn't in 2015. It was weird. I was just so apathetic about politics, because what happened was, I forgot about this whole thing. So throughout this whole thing, let's say from 2004 through 2021, this is the whole process. It was a long time, I know. But the whole thing was me. I got into more conspiracy stuff. I got into Jones and a little bit of Ike. I more just smirk at it. I don't really buy into a lot of the stuff, but I think it's kind of entertaining. InfoWars at the time in 2010, to me was more relevant back then. Even Kyle Kalinske admits that. Like, back in the day, Jones was way more, at least way more reasonable than he is now in a lot of ways. And by the way, that old Alex Jones, pops up in these other podcasts, but when you watch the show itself proper, it's like, this is nuts. It's kind of sad, because I don't know what the deal with him is. There's a very big character flaw involved with that. So throughout that, I was into that. I got less into it when I was into the Young Turks, and that was like from 2012 through about 2012 to about 8 years. I was really into Young Turks, Kyle Kalinske, who I don't mind as much as the other, like the Young Turks and Majority Report. I hated Majority Report because Matt Binder, but then he got replaced by Michael Brooks, or with Michael Brooks, and then I liked it again a little bit. That was like 2017 through 2018, and Jimmy Dore was on the Young Turks at the time, and there was a lot of progressive stuff that they were talking about that was reasonable. Like, they weren't like MSDNC and CNN and Clinton News Network. They didn't talk about Trump as much in that way. Like, they said Trump was bad, but there's other, this is a reason for Trump, blah, blah, blah. They were more nuanced about it at the time, at least, but they slowly snuck that stuff in with the TDS stuff, as they call it. as people call it. So that was kind of my political stuff then. But 2020 hit, and you know what hit? CV 1984. I just like to call it that. And just the response to it was so sensationalistic and crazy. And the Young Turks would do these videos about, you know, these right-wingers dying of the virus and stuff, and I was like, oh my God. It's like, they kept talking about it. Never mind, there was probably plenty of progressives and liberals dying of it too. But they would focus on this, like, magnifying glass on these cases. And it turns out, you know, I mean, the biggest, like, per capita, maybe the red states were worse, but like the most deaths did happen in blue states because they're more populated. So it's kind of a toss up in a way. You know, it's kind of a you know, whatever you want to call it. But so this whole thing happened, and I just was like, this is terrible. So I kept watching. I was slowly getting really sick of it though. And I was subbed at that point. It was like May 2020. And then the riot, you know, the George Floyd thing happened, and then they're like, after 2 months of telling people to stay indoors, you're gonna kill people if you go outside, if you hang out with other people, blah, 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 you know, all of a sudden, let's go outside and burn down buildings and all this stuff. Regardless of whether or not you agree with their tenets or not. There's some things with BLM that I supported. A lot of stuff, but the way that they did this whole thing, that just flipped immediately, and people went along, told me that people did not have their critical thinking skills intact. Because one minute you were telling people, if you were going out and protesting the lockdowns, you're a murdering psychopath. And then you're telling people to go congregate in these huge crowds. Now, there were a lot of people, like friends of me online and in Madison, that were like saying, please be careful doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I'll give a little credit to that, but these people, this Democratic mayors and governors, just telling people to do this. I mean, basically encouraging people to do these protests after telling people to stay indoors. There wasn't a lot of new information about the CV at that point, other than the mask thing becoming a thing. It's just, to me, that just shattered my trust and shattered my faith in anything with the Democratic Party. And that was just like, that was the end. That was pretty much the end. And I did videos about that too. Just the hypocrisy, the sheer hubris and hypocrisy involved in that. Oh, well, racism is a public health threat. It's a virus. It's like, yeah, fine. I'm not going to deny that. I've known people that were stopped and pulled over because they're black and stuff, like more than white people. Yeah, it's real. Okay. Unconscious bias is real to some extent, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there is a huge number of shootings from cops. Like, I want to look this up. I want to look more into this, but, you know, supposedly there's 12 a year of unarmed people, 12 shootings of unarmed people by police. Now, that is a low number. That is a very low number. I don't know if I believe that because it's so low. You know, if I had to estimate, maybe there's about 50 or 60. If I had to say if this is real, it's probably 50 or 60. Now, I'm not going to say that that's the case or not. This is just my personal belief. I don't know. I haven't looked into the stats. Even Destiny, of all people, you know, he's kind of a moderate on YouTube. He said there's 12 shootings by cops a year, which isn't much. And so the George Floyd thing, which I did not support what happened in that situation, okay? But, you know, the scale of burning down entire neighborhoods for this thing, that was destructive and stupid. And not to mention, why not go to the pillars of power of, you know, the actual people in power, the politicians, you know, that are, if there's systemic racism, why not go to those neighborhoods and burn them down? Why burn down your own neighborhood or someone else's, you know, that's just trying to work their damn job? That was very weird and very bizarre. And the whole summer was bizarre with all the smoke, you know, on the West Coast at that point. Now there's smoke on the East Coast, or there was. You know, all this wildfire stuff. It was just a bizarre year. Now, 2020 was not as bad as 2021 for me because I was doing a lot of role playing at the time. I was doing like 2 or 3 times a week. I was going over and hanging out with people, playing role playing games in our little bubble, Yeah, it wasn't really a bubble, but it was. And I had a date and stuff. Like in the fall, it was really weird and stuff. And I had, trying to hang out with women and stuff. It was it was actually a way better year than 2021. That was the worst year of my life, but for various reasons, various other reasons too. So yeah, that's kind of like that was my journey. And then I was talking about Biden in 2019. I was like, it'd be terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I was arguing with people about that. And, that's what happened. And what happens here now on social media, I'm kind of like, people are still friends with me, like on Facebook, for example. But I believe that probably a lot of them unfollowed me after all the CV-19 stuff they used to post, which was never like some kind of crazy stuff. It was usually like Prasad, these doctors that would say these things, or David Katz was kind of full of shit, but whatever. I would post these things from these people, like the Barrington Declaration kind of people, and we'd get into arguments and stuff like that, blah blah blah. And I went a little too far sometimes, but I feel like I never recovered from that socially in this town necessarily. In some respects, I feel like they didn't unfriend. There was a few people that unfriended me, but the majority did not. But I feel like they don't really comment on stuff anymore for various reasons. Like, it's fine, because I'm going to be going out there. I'm going out there more often now and going out to bars and stuff. And like, if they see me and want to talk to me, that's cool. If they don't, if they think I'm some far right fascist Nazi denier of the CV or something, that's their choice. I was suspect. I was sus. I found it very sus, a lot of the ideas that were happening, and hypocrisy and hubris involved with that. I have no apologies for that part of it. I make no apologies for that part of it. But then, I haven't had the original VA triple X, VA double X. I had it. I had the original one. I didn't get any booster seats, but I didn't have the Emily RNA ones, but I had the Big Johnson one. People criticize. I just wanted to see, what would happen, but it's fine. So, did have a weird leg pain last night though, but anyways, I don't know. So I don't really believe in this like notion that I'm like insane politically or something like that, but or right wing for that matter. I still don't believe. I believe I'm probably a real centrist, like actually really centrist, like in a certain way. I'm like the most radical centrist, certain ways, because I read Ayn Rand, but I also read Marx, and I think there's good things and bad things about both. That's just the way it goes. I don't know where I stand. I'm just a freak. It's fine. But I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about being a freak politically, like being just totally off the walls. I mean, know who I'm voting for. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I was watching this. I already talked about that. But that's kind of my political journey the last like 15 years or so plus. That's where I am now. It could change, but I went further to the right, probably because of the Gamergate / like Manosphere, and the Gamergate and Manosphere stuff getting so assaulted by people that did not have people's best interest at heart, and they do not believe in things that I find to be functionally real. I mean, the Manosphere stuff alone. Oh, it's like harassment going up to a strange woman that you don't know. Like, some of these feminists believe this kind of crap. I mean, it's just insanity. Or the whole prefrontal cortex. If you're above 30 and you're dating a 22-year-old, you're automatically, assaulting them because they're not fully developed. Like, just these insane notions that I've seen the last few years, and a lot of that had its roots back then in some of these ideas. Like, I did a video about that too, like years ago, about this age difference thing, like the power dynamics. It's like I said, if a douchebag like me dated, let's say I dated, okay, there's a 4 in the number of my age, I'll just say. and it might be in the front. I don't like to talk about my age, but it's actually probably older than people think. If I dated a 22-year-old, let's say I dated a 23-year-old, hypothetically, like she graduated from college, and she's like has a, you know, she's like a prodigy, wonder kid, whatever you want to call it, and she's like PhD, and she's gonna be making like six-figure salary. Douchebag like me, what power do I have over that? Just because her like prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed at that point. It's just the questions are so dumb. These ideas are so stupid and ridiculous that I'm gonna call them out. Once I've learned about that stuff, like some of these ideas, I'm just like, yeah, if that makes me a right-wing extremist by believing that I could date like someone that's, well, at least 28 or something, 27, that it's, that's, and that someone would think that's wrong or problematic. I just find it disgusting, and that was even happening when I was younger, and when I was within the after age +7 range, I was getting called out on my age and stuff. So I'm not going to go into that in this video, but that was just one of the things that kind of pushed me right wing. Yeah. And in the Gamergate thing, just seeing all the lies that were perpetuated. And I'm not saying that Gamergate was great or something. I'm not saying that. But there's probably a lot of problems I'd had with that. But that pushed people further right. All these things that happen, all these extreme things on the left, extreme stupid things on the left, not even reasonable. Civil rights was not stupid. Even feminism originally was not stupid. First, second wave was not a bad thing. There were some extremists back then, like the lesbian separatist movements in England and stuff like that. Like, there's some crazy stuff involved in that. Andrea Dworkin, there's some weird stuff, but overall the intentions were good. I mean, everybody has good intentions. That's part of like neuro-linguistic programming. Everybody comes from a good, positive intent. But some of that stuff was crazy even back then. But like this new stuff is just, it doesn't like, I don't understand it. First of all, I don't understand having 65 different labels for gender. Where does that come from? What is the cause of these ideas? That's kind of one of those things. Maybe I'm an old boomer. I'm a boomer. Maybe that's how old I am, actually. Maybe I'm 54. Well, I'm 55, actually. I'm not gonna give away my age. You can probably figure out by watching my videos, though. He was, I don't really care. I'm 45. All right, that's fine. Whatever. I'm 55. I'm 65. I'm 25. I'm one of those ages, but anyways, it's kind of funny. I don't know. It's stupid, but yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's really dumb to say that I'm a far right extremist or something. Or I got called a saltine on Facebook yesterday. Saltine. Oh my god. Pretty ridiculous. People are calling people cracker now. It's kind of funny. I don't know if that's gonna pass muster on YouTube, me saying that, but that's basically what they're saying. I saw some mainstream Showtime video where they're talking about saltines. I'm like, oh my god, what if it was the flip side? You wouldn't have it on Showtime. There's a lot of really crazy stuff happening, but she's got to be a strong, dare I say, masculine, pillar in that storm that's happening around you. That's how life has to be. That's like a magical concept too, and that's kind of what I'm kind of trying to explore. So anyways, that's about all.